are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Happy Friday. Friday of a bye week. Man, I mean, this is about as free and easy as we're going to get in the regular season week. So I'm doing well. I'm excited to, I love Cowboys football. Obviously, I do a daily podcast on it.
Yeah.
But it's always nice, to actually have a Sunday to watch football without the kind of butterflies and like concerns about the game. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm really excited just to sit down and watch the games all week and not have any nervousness at all. It should be a lot of fun. So today, Landon, we've got a special episode because it's the bye week, so we can answer some more of your Twitter questions, and we got a little fun segment at the end for you guys. But let's get to some questions, and this first one is from Jacob, and I think it's a really good question. He wants to know, how badly do the Cowboys need the number 1 seed? Is it enough to have the number 2 seed and home field advantage through the first 2 rounds, or do they need to make it a priority to try to be the number 1 seed?
I mean, I think it's as much of a priority as it is for any team. There's obviously benefits to being the number 1 team, and especially with the changes in the playoff scenarios and stuff. I think the Cowboys should be shooting for it, absolutely, because they're certainly within striking distance as we stand currently. We have a long way to go, 2/3 of the season left, but I think that it certainly should be what they're going for. But if they don't, if they end up being the 2nd seed or something like that, or the 3rd seed, it's definitely not as good. I think the 2nd seed is pretty close. The difference between the 1st and the 2nd seed really may be negligible, especially this year, depending on who the NFC wildcard teams are, right? So
it's just an extra game, though. That's so big, though, right? Having to play one more game.
I think you can make an argument that those bye weeks are dangerous at times, because
they can be dangerous. However, we've seen, like, over the last decade, like, the number 1 seed makes it to the Super Bowl like 66% of the time. And I know that's because typically the number 1 seed is the best team in the conference, team right? In football, but when you just have one fewer game that you can possibly slip up in, I think it matters. Now, there's a question I lost where it's at, but basically the question was, if the Cowboys aren't going to be the number 1 seed, at what point do you start managing some of the snaps of these guys? Like, for example, the listener pointed out Amari Cooper. It's pretty clear he's compromised right now with at least 3 different injuries: a knee, a foot, or a knee, a hamstring, and a
ankle. I think, right?
An ankle injury. Like, at what point do you say, "Hey, Amari, listen, let's say we're 9-2. Why don't you just take the week off, or take 2 weeks off? Let's let Michael Gallup and some of these other guys get more run." Is that something you start to consider?
I think you have to be really careful doing that stuff. And honestly, it goes back to what I was just talking about. Like, I think there's an element of trying too hard to, get your guys extra rest that is borderline taking your foot off the gas. Right? Like, and I think I think it is just as much of a problem as having to play an extra game, is that in the playoffs, when you get to the end of the year, you become a well-oiled machine, and at least the good teams do. And so I think there is something to the idea that there is a certain amount of diminishing returns in losing a week, especially that time of year when you're kind of really battle testing yourself.
So do you start doing it now?
I think that's something that should be considered. Yeah. I mean, I think that if you're going to do kind of maintenance on these guys, I think there is a concern that, I personally think that there is benefits to doing it earlier in the season, and then kind of really just have them in their dead sprints by the end of the year and just not pulling them out of that. I think that we've seen it with Cowboys teams in the past, I think, where they've gone in, they've gotten an opportunity to either get a bye or they've rest their starters week 17, and then they come into those games flat and they've had problems. Now, part of that could be the problem with those specific teams, but it's not just the Cowboys that have this problem, So I think that there is a very difficult balance between not playing your starters and making sure that they're still kind of fully in the rhythm of their offensive and defensive game plans by the end of the season.
I'm curious to see what happens with a few of these guys once, like, Neville Gallimore comes back and Michael Gallup and Kelvin Joseph. Like, do they scale back the snaps for Trevon Diggs? Do they scale back Amari Cooper snaps or not? I mean, I think this is the time to start thinking about that, especially with a couple of the guys that are really banged up.
Odigizua is the guy that I think about, because he's playing a ton of snaps and he's a rookie. So I would say when Gallimore comes back, if you could figure out a defensive tackle rotation that you can get away with for a little while, it would probably behoove them to give Osa some either reduced snap games or just like a week off here and there, because that is something, less so with some of the other positions that the rookies and the young players are playing in. But defensive tackle is such a brutal position to play for that many snaps for that long.
The other one I would say is Randy Gregory, because I know Gregory missed week 2 because of COVID, but he's been dealing with a knee injury for a while now. And because they just haven't had the depth because of DeMarcus Lawrence being hurt, Dorrance Armstrong being hurt, Bradley and I missing 2 games because of COVID, Gregory's had to play a lot of snaps. So he's another one you might want to scale back his snaps. Not a ton. Like, I'm not saying 25 snaps a game, but he doesn't need to be playing 95% of the snaps going forward, right?
Yeah, you hope that Armstrong coming back will give him more opportunity to kind of get some lower snap count games. I guess is the best way to say it. And then eventually, and maybe that's the benefit to kind of slow playing Lawrence, right? Is that if you get Lawrence all the way right before you bring him back, then you can just feed him a whole bunch of snaps once he gets back, and then rest the other guys.
So what was the initial timetable? Did they say 8 to 10 weeks for Lawrence, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
I really don't want to see Lawrence until after Thanksgiving at the very earliest. Those foot injuries can be so bad. There's absolutely no rush to try to get him back on the field. I would just rather have him ready to go by January rather than trying to get him back in week 14 or whatever. It does not make a difference. So
I need him at the end of the year.
I need him when you're playing Aaron Rodgers in the second round of the playoffs to make the game-winning sack, right?
That's right.
Or against Stafford, which he's done before. All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline. We are back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the website and use their updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, baseball, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the easiest and fastest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. All right, Landon, I got to pick on these 2 people that sent us questions. I'm going to read these back to back. These are different ones. This one's from Evan. There's been a big debate recently about how much credit Mike McCarthy should be getting for this team's success so far this season. This is an honest question I'm actually curious about. What exactly does he do besides clock management, speeches, and press conferences? Kellen calls the plays. Next question. This one's from Big Sauce. Why does Mike McCarthy not get any credit? Everyone nitpicks his game management. It's not perfect, but most other coaches have the same issues weekly. It's just a lazy thing to harp on. So, what are your thoughts on Mike McCarthy and the credit that he deserves?
I think that the second question is more correct.
I think I would agree.
I think that he's not getting enough credit. And I think that it's easy. Look, some of you guys clearly have shown that you weren't alive or watching football for the Andy Reid Philadelphia Eagles, because
it was the biggest thing on it. It's still, I mean,
it's still a problem with him.
How bad he was at the end of games.
It's still a problem with him.
Yeah.
And look, it's one aspect of these head coaching that, there is so much that goes into being a head coach. You organize every single aspect of what the players do every day.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Coaching isn't just a Sunday job, right?
No.
Being a good coach is being a good coach Monday through Saturday. And there's, as you mentioned, there's so much stuff between practices, getting the right practice schedule, dealing with players' personalities and knowing how to best motivate them, dealing with the egos of coaches, right? Like, that's a big thing we don't talk about at all. And it seems like Mike McCarthy's got a pretty good idea of how to deal with that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot that goes into coaching.
It would have been really easy for Mike McCarthy to come in here and tell Kellen Moore, this isn't how we're running this offense.
Exactly.
Or we're doing this. I mean, we're not giving him enough credit for the fact that he had some flexibility here. And, I'm really tired of ex-Packer fans who happen to be commenting on Cowboys constantly of projecting their own, failures of Packerdom when he was there, despite the fact that they won a Super Bowl with the guy. It's like, I understand the Aaron Rodgers worship and that how could you only win one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? Let's not pretend that Aaron Rodgers is absolutely infallible all the time. All right. He is a roller coaster himself.
Yeah.
So, and look, say what you will about Aaron Rodgers, not a terribly likable guy. So his coach was able to kind of hold that team. Ask his family, which is part of the reason that his coach was able to kind of hold that team together. Look, obviously it went sour with the Packers to the point where the Packers front office and a bunch of other people were leaking terrible things about McCarthy that may or may not be true. I have a hard time, and you and I have discussed this, privately. I have a hard time resolving the criticism around Mike McCarthy about, he's lazy, but blah, 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 except the results don't seem to match any of that.
No.
Right?
No.
Like the actual results on the field, they don't seem to match any of that. He did a great job of training camp. Clearly, look how this team came out of training camp in a way that they haven't in years. And that complaint also, combined with the end of game stuff, like those are two completely different things. So I don't understand how you're associating one with the other. My larger point on this is that this team is 5-1, and everyone's talking about, oh God, Kellen Moore is going to leave to go be a head coach. And listen, I think Kellen Moore, if you're giving me the choice, I would rather have Kellen Moore as my head coach than Mike McCarthy next year. But that isn't to say that Mike McCarthy doesn't deserve credit for his team being 5-1. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous, guys. And if you can't give like Mike McCarthy some credit for the fact that he took, 10 years worth of Green Bay teams to the playoffs or something like that, something ridiculous. Like it's just really like, Cowboys fandom has this ability to look past mounds and mounds of evidence to find the one thing that they think is wrong and then harp on that to the point where they can, confuse themselves into thinking that the subject of the conversation is bad because they can't do this one thing. And this one thing that I've determined is the most important thing is the only determining factor on whether a player or coach, whatever it is good. And I think that's happening right now with Mike McCarthy.
How easy would it have been for Mike McCarthy just to get into Jerry Jones's office, drop his ring on the table and say, we're doing it my way. We're going to run the defense that I used when I won the Super Bowl. I'm going to call the plays because that's what I did when we won the Super Bowl, and we're going to run my offense. And he didn't do any of that. Like, he lets Dan Quinn run his defense or run like whatever defense Dan Quinn wants to run in whatever situation he wants to run it. He can. Now, I know the argument is, well, isn't that just being lazy? He's basically delegating all of his jobs. That's what a head coach does, right? Like
that's what a head coach does.
It's what a good manager or a good boss does is they put people in situations they trust and they kind of let them do their jobs. It sounds simple, but it's really, really hard for these head coaches to let go of control. And I think McCarthy's done a really good job of that so far.
I think one of the good things that Jason Garrett was doing at certain points was day-to-day management. I thought that was one of the strengths that Jason Garrett had. Having said that, Jason Garrett put serious clamps on Kellen Moore. Yes. Do you see Mike McCarthy doing that? No, I don't.
No, I think it's the opposite. I think he's kind of helping him open up as a
Empowered.
play caller, right? Yeah, he's
Absolutely.
giving them confidence. Like, hey, if it doesn't work, that's okay. We're trying different things. We're trying to be a more explosive offense rather than, hey, let's kind of rein things back in. We're getting a little too wild, Kellen. It doesn't seem like that's the case at all, right?
Yeah, and again, if you're judging a head coach solely on their fourth quarter decisions, I mean, Andy Reid is just the best example. There are literally hundreds of Hall of
Or
Fame level coaches that have these problems. I mean, heck, the Hall of Fame coach we just played
I was
last
going to say
week
that.
had this problem. So
How about last Sunday? He punted 3 different times on 4th and 2 or less.
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
look, even the stats. Like if you go look at Ben Baldwin's numbers and like the comparison of decision making versus what the fourth down bot tells you, I think Dallas is number 2 or
yeah,
something like
number
that.
2.
So
Number 2. Yep.
what are we doing here, guys?
We're doing well.
Like, I mean,
Uh,
let's give Mike McCarthy some credit for this 5-1 start that we're enjoying right now.
Absolutely. All right, next question. This one kind of ties into what we're talking about. This one is from at Ball from Grace. He wants to know how much has the Kellen Moore
Best.
offense evolved since the 2019 season? It feels like it existed within the confines of Garrett in 2019, but wasn't fully realized in 2020, but has fully evolved this year. What have you seen in the differences between Kellen Moore?
Shout out to Ball from Grace because he's a great follow as well.
Yeah.
I've seen, first of all, it's more that it's just all available to them all the time. The Cowboys have had, I don't know that we've seen outside of some of the trick plays, that are obviously, very visible and we all point and ooh and ah. The offense is largely constructed of plays that the Cowboys have had in their playbook for a decade.
Ever. Yeah,
a
it's
long
just
time.
it's just the sequencing of them, right?
It's the sequencing and it's the willingness to call plays, at certain times that previously we wouldn't. And the ratio of run to pass, the timing of it, the in-game, per game planning against an opponent. It's a different philosophy. It's viewing through a different pair of glasses. So
Yeah.
I think, part of what happened that's happened since 2019 is that 2019 was, Kellen's first year calling plays, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then 2020, was the year that obviously that was supposed to, kind of take a step forward and evolve some. And the problem was obviously with COVID, it's tougher to kind of, really drive home those plays and figure out what's good in your playbook when you're all working from home. Right. So I think that the opportunity to actually have a full training camp, having a year, 2+ years under his belt for Kellen. I think that, and then obviously, they've got maybe top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now. So I think all those things coming together with, and listen, give Jason Garrett and some other these folks credit for developing a decade's worth of very complicated and very robust run game options in there, right? Like they run power, pin and pull, lots of zone, man. So I think having that kind of built in with an offensive line that's been practicing that well since even before Kellen's been here, that provided another opportunity, and Kellen was not afraid to leverage that in the run game. And again, another guy who, real quick, needs a shout out that has never gotten any, or has gotten very little, and definitely deserves more, is Joe Philbin. Joe Philbin has done a hell of a job as an offensive line coach and as a run game coordinator in designing these game plans and also developing these offensive linemen.
Just a couple things on Kellen before we move on. I really like how the game plan just adjusts depending on the opponent. Like against the Chargers, they just ran the crap out of the ball that game, right? And then against the Patriots, they're throwing the ball 50 times. And it's not, hey, we're going to line up and do what we do best. It's we're going to tailor a game plan around what the opponent is going to give us, right? And what they can't stop. So I really appreciate that. I also have a hot take for you, Landon.
Let's hear it.
I think last year was good for Kellen Moore in some ways because it taught him how to call a game on offense when everything's not perfect around him, right? Like we saw a game against Atlanta where they were missing both offensive tackles and they still put up 40 points. We saw at the end of the year, like I know there was a lot of quarterback problems, but at the end of the year, the Cowboys were putting up points. Like Week 14, 30 against Cincinnati. Week 15, 41 against the 49ers. Week 16, 37 against the Eagles. And that's all with Andy Dalton playing quarterback. So I think that season helped Kellen Moore find ways to put up points despite maybe the offensive line not being perfect. The running back's not running really well. So I think it was good for him.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, effective human beings find a way to grow from adversity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we saw, is that this was a terrible season for a lot of different people, but on several different fronts, not just the Cowboys coaches, but certain Cowboys players as well, were able to take the lessons that they learned from what was an awful season and grow from it. And I think that's all you can ask for a football player, but that's also all you can ask for a human being that's going through terrible things, right? It's just to try to find a way to learn from it and grow from it. And I agree, Kellen Moore has done a lot of that based on what was a disaster year last year.
All right, let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about McDonald's. This episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family from the community can come together. A big thank you to all of our friends at McDonald's for always being there. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it. You get that every time. You laugh every single time.
I'm loving it, man. I'm loving you singing the song. It's great. It's awesome.
You know what we also love? Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. It's real chocolate with amazing flavors and just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you will get 15% off your next box at BuiltBar.com.
Get the coconut crunch.
Yes, that's a good one. All right, we have a fun little segment for you today, Landon. I didn't even tell you what this is, so it's going to surprise you a little bit. We are getting close to Halloween. It's next week. We're going to be busy with some game prep against Minnesota, so we're not going to get a chance to talk about Halloween too much. So I want you to rank your top 5 candy bars on the show right now. So not like Reese's Pieces, not Mike and Ike's. I want your candy bars.
We're taking Built Bar out of this because it's not
Built Bar's number one, of course.
Okay, yeah, obviously. Oh, dude, you really got me.
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. And are we going 5-1 or what's? Yeah, give me.
You can do 5-1. Yeah, you can do 5-1. I made a little list right here that you can list.
That's amazing. All right, cool.
So I'll break it down 10 through 1. It's Kit Kat at number 10, Snickers at number 9, Payday at number 8, Take 5 at 7, 100 Grand at 6, Twix is at 5, Reese's Fast Break at 4, Reese Cups at 3, Milky Way at 2, and at number 1, the greatest candy bar of all time, Heath Bar. Thoughts?
Well, I think I've only ever had one Heath Bar in my life.
What?
Maybe.
Do they not have them out in California?
No, they have them.
Okay.
Yes, they have them in California. My mother-in-law. No, it's 100 Grand is another one that I think I've only had. That's the one that's like covered in peanuts and caramel, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
100 Grand. Yeah. That was pretty good. I don't even know what the Reese's Fast Break is. I've never even
you need to try it. It's like they basically break up Reese Cups and they put it in, and it has a little bit of like a nougat in there. It's really good.
Man. All right, so I'll give you my. Milky Way is disgusting. I don't know what's wrong with you. I'll give you.
It's chocolate and caramel.
I don't like it. You know what? I'm sorry. I take that back. I always get Milky Way and
Snickers.
No, Three Musketeers.
Oh yeah. We don't. Yeah. Nobody likes Three Musketeers.
Nobody likes it. Okay, so I'll give you my 5 because I don't know, man. I don't think I can do 10. So 5 would be Snickers. Okay. 4 would be Kit Kat. 3 would be Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. 2 would be Nestle Crunch.
That's
a big one. Nestle Crunch fan. Mm-hmm. And number 1 is without a doubt Almond Joy. I love coconut. So
all right. Well, you need to explain something to me. What is the difference between an Almond Joy and Mounds? Are they very similar?
Almonds. That's the difference.
That's all it is?
Yeah, Almond Joys have nuts. It's like the ad says, Marcus. Hey, by the way, Almond Joy, if you guys want to hit us up on to get a sponsorship, I'll do the jingle. Almond Joys got nuts, Mounds don't. That's the difference.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, there you go. Now
Okay.
just listen to the jingle. That's all you got to do. They'll guide you to your candy choice.
The next question I have for you: what is the worst candy bar out there? Because I think Three Musketeers is close.
It's terrible. Mike and Ike's, man.
That's not a candy bar. That's like just.
I guess we're doing candy bar. Okay. Man.
How about? Do you like Baby Ruth's?
No, Baby Ruth is terrible. That's another one that's terrible. Anything with like weird like nougat that's not like good.
Yeah, see, I'm not a huge nougat fan. It just depends.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, I like chocolate and crunch. That's kind of my two big elements that I'm looking for.
I can't believe you've only had a Heath bar once in your life. Go buy one this weekend and enjoy yourself.
I mean, it's Halloween, so it's the time for trying candy, I guess, right?
So, all right. So I am a new dad this year, and we are going to a Halloween party. So, what's the rule on stealing candy if you're a dad from your daughter?
How conscious are they? Because I mean, if they don't even know the difference, if they're just drooling on themselves, like your daughter is, then it's just.
Oh, well, she loves suckers. Like every time I have a sucker, she just pulls it out of my mouth and puts it right.
Well, see, then I mean, then that's out of the realm. But as long as you can just sneak out of the pumpkin head, candy thing holder that you've got, as long as you can sneak it without her noticing. Up until how old's my daughter? 7 is how old he can continue to steal candy from.
Yeah, at that age, I'd just say, oh, these Heath bars, they're no good. They're going to hurt your teeth. You don't want that one.
Oh, that's usually the excuse we use too is, eating this much candy is not good for you. That's why we're going to put it in the shelf. And then meanwhile, while she's asleep, we just steal little bits of it here and there. I don't know what happened to all the candy, sweetie. You must have eaten it.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. So we want to hear your top 5 candy bars. Please leave us a 5-star review. Leave your answers in there in the comment section. I would like to hear if you guys think I'm ridiculous for putting Heath at number 1.
Do we have some Baby Ruth fans? Like, are there people out there that like
Baby
Ruth? Please,
everybody that's over the age of like 75, they have
leave a review.
They have
leave a review and tell us.
Soft candy bar or something. That's what they have to eat.
Ugh, gross.
All right. Follow Landon at McCoolBCB. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy the bye week. We'll see you guys next time.